In this video, I'm going to give you the only LinkedIn marketing strategy you need to be using right now. This is the same marketing strategy I've used to grow my account to over 36,000 followers, and as a result, scale my own business to over $1 million in revenue, just through marketing myself the right way on LinkedIn. And this isn't just working for me. It's working across multiple verticals and across over 50 companies. For example, using this marketing strategy, I've been able to help founders like Austin Hughes go from just under 3,000 followers to over 22,000 followers on LinkedIn, and more importantly, generate $15 million in pipeline from LinkedIn content. So by the end of this video, you'll have the blueprint to do exactly what I'm doing and what all those founders and companies are doing to grow their audience and scale their business using LinkedIn. Now, first things first, what makes LinkedIn the best marketing platform for B2B companies in 2025? Really, in short, B2B decision makers are on the platform and in the right state of mind to make buying decisions. So if you're trying to sell high average contract value deals to B2B decision makers, LinkedIn is the platform you want to use. Now, X or Twitter, whatever you're calling it, can work for startups, but it's a lot more volatile, and honestly, it requires you to be online all the time, replying, posting several times per day. Whereas LinkedIn, you don't have to put in as much effort and you can get just as much, if not more, output from the platform. Another factor you want to consider when picking social media platforms is organic reach. Is there consistent and strong organic reach on the platform? And the answer to both of those for LinkedIn is yes. Once you've committed to LinkedIn, you have to decide what type of content you're going to be posting on LinkedIn. There's company-led content and founder-led content. So company-led content, growing your company page and trying to use that as the distribution channel for your product. That's kind of the old way of doing it. It can still work okay sometimes, but company pages just don't get that much reach, especially if you're an earlier company, like you're bootstrapped, you raised a seed round or maybe a Series A. You don't have a whole lot of brand recognition. The new way of doing this, which is founder-led content. So you, the founder, becoming the face and the influencer behind the brand. This works better because people want to follow people on social media. Think about your own content consumption behavior. Like, who are you watching? What are you consuming on social, whether it be on LinkedIn or other platforms? A lot of the times, it's not corporate content. It's content from your favorite thought leaders and influencers. And remember, as a founder, unless you're a massive brand, you just don't have the brand equity. So if people see this random logo on their timeline, especially if the content is kind of boring, which company content tends to be on the boring side, they're not going to stop scrolling, but they are going to be willing to give you, the person, the founder, a shot. Now, I've helped over 50 founders start posting on LinkedIn, and I've talked to hundreds more on sales calls and even just consulting calls or helping friends try to post on LinkedIn. And there are 3 really common mistakes that keep them stuck. The first mistake, I will admit, is not super groundbreaking, but it needs to be said. Consistency. If you cannot commit 6 months of posting 3 to 5 times, ideally 5 times per week on LinkedIn, you do not deserve to have an audience that buys from you on LinkedIn. So if you're going to sit here and tell me I'm going to post 1 time per week and expect to become world-class at this in 3 months or 6 months, do you really honestly deep down believe that? The good thing is, if you commit to posting consistently on LinkedIn, you will outlast and outperform almost every single one of your competitors, because everyone or most people fall into that first category of thinking that it's going to be easy or they deserve this massive audience for posting 1 time per week. Now, if you commit to this, you can expect to see an inflection point around 3 to 6 months. Second mistake, they don't have a clear, differentiated point of view. This one's massive. Like, once you get over the consistency hump and you start posting, this is probably the mistake that's most responsible for slow growth on LinkedIn. The fix here is to answer the golden question. So what's the one reason why someone in your ICP is going to follow you on LinkedIn? For example, someone's going to follow me on LinkedIn to get better at B2B content. That's the value that I'm providing on LinkedIn. I'm not trying to be a lifestyle influencer. I'm not trying to talk about paid media. I'm not trying to talk about email marketing. I could talk about those things. I know a decent amount about them. When you're early on in the game, especially in B2B marketing, you want to be known for one thing. I'm not saying you can't ever talk about anything else. That would be boring and I wouldn't recommend that. But early on, when you're trying to gain traction, stay focused. There's a direct correlation between the focus of your topics and the traction that you see early on. Now, there's another part to having a differentiated point of view, right? So you don't want to have this sterile, safe opinion on your industry. This is how you blend in. And yeah, you won't get canceled or attacked on the timeline, but you also won't stand out and nobody's going to care about your content. Remember, nobody knows who you are. That's the whole point of why we're doing this. And look, I'm not saying you have to go full extremist or start beef on the timeline. That's not the right move either. But you do want to have takes that some people might disagree with you on. If you don't have any haters or any people that disagree with you at all, it's probably a sign that you're playing it too safe and you're just in the middle and you're not differentiated. Now, the third mistake that founders will make that keeps them stuck with their content is having a misbalanced content funnel. And I'll explain the content funnel concept in a bit more depth in a second here, but at a high level, there's 3 parts to it: top, middle, and and bottom of funnel content. Top of funnel content is broader. It casts a wider net. It gets a lot of engagement and impressions on LinkedIn, but isn't always the most targeted content. This is stuff around like company culture, hiring, founder life, and like founder journey, building in public content. Bottom of funnel content, the other end of the spectrum, is your product content. So product demos, launches, case studies and testimonials, all the more salesy promotional stuff that's needed. But of course, you don't want to go too far in that direction. Middle of funnel content is your industry specific thought leadership. So this is meant to establish you as the go-to resource for your ICP in your category. So for example, this video you're watching right now is middle of funnel content. This is establishing me as an expert in LinkedIn marketing and LinkedIn content. The mistake is that a lot of founders will go either too far bottom of funnel, so a lot of really salesy stuff. The other mistake is that they'll go too far top of funnel because they see a post about how they only do in-person work over remote work, overperform, and they're like, oh, I should talk about this more because this post did better. But that's just vanity metrics if you go too far in that direction. Bottom of funnel content is great for converting people, but it's not great for building an audience. If you do too much of that, you're just not going to get any visibility. And then with top of funnel content, if you go too far in that direction, you'll get a lot of visibility, but you're not really establishing yourself with your core ICP. So the fix here is to have a balanced content funnel. And I'll discuss this in a second here in the strategy playbook section. In short, you don't want to go too far in either direction, right? You want to have the appropriate content funnel mix. All right, so now that we've gone through the mistakes that founders make on LinkedIn, you know what to avoid and the quick fixes there. I want to run you through a full 90-day blueprint for what to do to stand up your LinkedIn strategy. Like this will give you everything you possibly need to start posting and having success on LinkedIn if you are a B2B founder. Step one here is determine your account positioning. Like I mentioned, a mistake a lot of founders run into is they don't have a clear reason why someone in their target audience should follow them. So what's that one reason why someone in your ICP is going to follow you on LinkedIn? For me, it's to get better at LinkedIn content. For Adam Robinson, it's to learn how to grow a SaaS company. For Dave Gerhardt, it's to learn how to get better at B2B marketing. And when you pick this answer, you want to make sure you have what I call content market fit. For example, I could talk about how I'm growing Compound, the strategies that I'm using to grow my company, and that might get a lot of traction on the platform, but it's going to attract other agency owners, which I don't want to sell to other agency owners. I need to make sure that the topics I'm talking about speak to that person, not people that are outside of my ICP. And there's three factors you want to consider with content market fit. One, is it relevant to your ICP? Two, is it relevant to your product? And three, do you have credibility to talk about that topic? If you're missing any one of those three aspects, you don't have content market fit. Now, once you've got that, you want to pick 1 to 3 contrarian industry opinions to double down on in your content. So what do you believe? What does your company believe that most don't? What's something that some people might disagree with you on? And you have to be okay with people disagreeing with you in the comments. You want to have a stance or an opinion as a company, as a founder, that you can lean on in your content, and it is a core pillar in your messaging. Step 2 is set up your LinkedIn profile. You want to think about your LinkedIn profile like a landing page. Your posts are generating all this traffic. Once that traffic finds you and is interested, they're going to go over to your LinkedIn profile, kind of like when you're running ads, that traffic goes to a landing page. First, make sure your headline is set up properly. So the formula here is simple. You want to have your role, your company, and a one-line value statement. And that one-line value statement should clearly state your answer to the golden question. For example, my headline on LinkedIn is CEO at Compound, co-founder at Bluecast, so role company and role company since I got 2, and then building a social media agency for B2B companies. So if someone wants to get better at B2B social, B2B content, they're going to follow me. And here's another example from Ben, the founder of Equals, CEO at Equals, so role company, and make better decisions with subscription, CRM, and product data. So very clear value statement. Now with your about section, a lot of people overcomplicate this. You don't need a super long novel of an about section. All you need is a few lines just to clearly explain what you do, who you do it for, give some social proofs, and then give a rundown of what to expect from your content. And then you want to set the expectation for what you're going to be talking about in your content. So what should someone expect if they follow you? Once that's set up, the next thing you want to set up is your featured links section. You want to pick 2 featured links. In most cases, for software founders, I'd recommend picking your homepage or a book a demo page and then a case study. So this gives someone a very clear next step, and then it also gives them social proof so they know who you work with, what you do, the results you get. The next step in building out your content strategy is clearly establishing your content funnel. Like I mentioned earlier, there's 3 steps to this. So top, middle, and bottom of funnel content. My recommended split here to start, if you're posting 5 times per week, go with 1 top of funnel post per week, go with 3 middle of funnel posts per week, and go with 1 bottom of funnel post per week. Step 3, set your posting cadence. Again, you want to post consistently here. If you can't commit to 6 months of consistent posting, you're not going to have success on LinkedIn. My recommendation here is post 5 times per week. When you first start posting, mix up your formats as well. So go with some text only, text plus image, carousels. The main takeaway here is that you want to vary your formats and see what works best for you. The next step is perhaps the most important. You want to engage with people, and you want to do this in 2 ways. One, with sending targeted connection requests. So find people in your ICP. You can just look up the role. So if you're trying to sell into CROs, you might look up CROs on LinkedIn or in their Sales Navigator tool and send connection requests to those people. Because when they accept that connection request, they're opting in to see your content. It's a mutual follow. So if you're posting content every single day and you're sending these relevant targeted connection requests, when they accept that request, they're going to see your next post. Assuming your content is good because you're following the stuff in this video and on my channel, they're going to engage. And because they engage, now they're seeing more and more of your content. So they enter your flywheel. You'll also want to comment on other posts. You want to find ICP accounts and also influencer accounts in your categories. Like who else is your ICP? Commenting on their content is a great way to get in front of them. On connection requests, send 20 per day. That's about the upper limit that LinkedIn will let you send. It'll take you 5 to 10 minutes to do. It's super quick. And then you want to spend about 20 minutes per day commenting on other people's content. By the way, if you want deeper dives into LinkedIn and B2B content strategy and examples and case studies and breakdowns of companies who do this really well, you'll love my newsletter. I send out a deep dive every single Monday where I go in depth on a company's social media strategy, what's working in B2B content, everything you could possibly need to use content and LinkedIn in particular as a way to get customers. If you want to check that out, it's totally free. It's in the description. Submit your email and I'll send you the next edition. What I want to do now is give you some specific examples of content that you can post on LinkedIn and specific formats you can use to get traction faster. The first style of post I'd recommend is a narrative post or story-based piece of content. And you can use these across your entire funnel. Here are 3 examples. 1, personal founder stories. These could be more top, middle of funnel. 2, you got customer conversation stories. These could be middle of funnel or even bottom of funnel, like case study type posts that are more narrative based. And 3, team and employee stories. So if you want to use LinkedIn and content as a way to recruit and hire people, you can use those narrative based pieces of content to do that as well. So here's an example of one of these I love from Adam Robinson. Adam does a great job with narrative posts and specifically these more polarizing ones. For example, in this post, he writes, one of my CEO friends was over $100 million. His startup had a $1.2 billion unicorn valuation in 2021. I always thought he was crushing it on every observable metric. So did he. Then last week we went jogging and he started venting and he goes into this whole story of how his company's actually show and everything's not good. And it's just very engaging narrative posts. Notice how much more engaging this style of content is over a post that just says, hey, you shouldn't raise VC money, do this instead. Second style of post is going to be your polarizing opinions. Remember how we talked about sterile, safe opinions get you nowhere. You want to make sure you have some hot takes. Don't just use hot takes for the sake of using hot takes, or don't be an extremist for the sake of it. That's not going to get you far either, but you want to share polarizing opinions that you actually believe. Now, an example I love here is this post from Dorena about how just build an MVP might be the worst advice for founders in 2025. Building an MVP is pretty traditional startup advice. You hear it a lot. So going against that makes someone think, wait, what? And again, it's one of those opinions that people are either going to really agree on because they didn't agree with that advice that you need to build an MVP in the first place, or they're going to be very against it because they bought into that traditional startup advice. And as you can see, the post got pretty good engagement. It has almost 200 likes and almost 100 comments, which again on LinkedIn is pretty strong. Another style of content I recommend experimenting with is savable frameworks and templates. One of the main reactions you want to trigger in people when they read your content is saving it or sharing it with their team in a Slack channel. So you want to post stuff that your ICP finds so valuable that they think, oh, I need to send this to my team in Slack so we can use this in our next meeting or our next planning session. Now, here's one that I posted that's actually pretty simple. It's just pretty much the text that I wrote up here, just in an infographic, like screenshot essay format. So even if you're not super into graphic design, or if you don't have designers on your team, you can just do something like this, or you take the text and put it into a screenshot essay like this. Now, the next post format that is ripping right now is these lead magnet giveaways. One of our clients runs these every single week and every single time. It absolutely rips. So what they'll do is they'll give away this asset. People need to comment for access. Once they comment and engage, their sales team will go through, follow up with the people that did get access to the lead magnet, and try to book meetings. Okay, now let's talk tools and AI. The first use case I have for AI is using Claude projects. So one of the cool things about Claude is that you can actually set up what are called projects and load in training data or knowledge for that project. So Claude can respond to you with that context. So for example, if I wanted to use Claude to edit my writing, I would upload sample newsletters, sample LinkedIn posts. If I have a style guide that I have, I can upload it there as well. I can upload into that project so Claude knows me better and can give better recommendations when editing my content, outlining stuff for me, or even drafting some posts from scratch. Now, another way I like to use Claude is to poke holes in my writing. And one way I like to do this is to ask it to poke logical holes in my argument. And I love to have my team do this as well, because sometimes we're writing for clients where we're not experts in that category. We want to make sure that everything is super accurate. So we might take a post that we've drafted, put it into Claude, and ask Claude, hey, assume you're an expert in B2B go-to-market. Are there any logical gaps in this content? And what it'll do is read through the content and then point out, hey, you said this, are you sure about that? Or you said this, but then this, that doesn't make sense. Now, the second use case I have for AI is ChatGPT's deep research. So this is one area where it really stands out from Claude. So if I'm writing about a topic that I don't know about completely, or I'm still kind of understanding or getting to know it, I'm going to use ChatGPT's deep research to put together a research report and help me get up to speed faster. In the agency setting, this is really helpful when we're onboarding a brand new client. I'll put in the company's URL, the founder's LinkedIn profile, and then some other context, fill out their onboarding form. If they filled it out, I'll put it in there as well, and ask ChatGPT to do a deep research report. And this will help me get a high level understanding of their industry, their competitors, and I'll toss the prompt that I use up on the screen right now. You can use this if you're writing for yourself or for clients. Now, the third use case I have for AI in LinkedIn content is using Perplexity to do research on finding stats and current events. Perplexity is like Google on steroids. Before, you'd have to type in stats for X, Y, or Z, stats for B2B marketing. And a lot of times you get this stat that's super out of date and you have to scroll through a bunch of random websites, and it's a very time-consuming manual process. With Perplexity, you no longer have to do that manual clicking through sites and going through ads and all this stuff. You can just ask Perplexity, hey, do you have any stats on why LinkedIn is the best B2B marketing platform? And it'll search the web and give you a summarized answer with links to those sources. Now, throughout this video, I literally gave you the best marketing strategy you can be using on LinkedIn right now. But if you're first getting started, you're going to run into roadblocks. There's going to be challenges that you hit and you don't quite know how to solve, which is why I made this video for both complete beginners and intermediate LinkedIn users that goes over exactly what I would do if I was starting LinkedIn from scratch in 2025. So you can copy my exact plan to market your business and get leads and ultimately grow your business using LinkedIn content. So I'll see you over in that next video.